Alright, what's going on, guys? So, over the past week, a lot of new Elden Ring developments have happened. Things including the Miyazaki interviews, which we've already covered here on the channel, and the Elden Ring social media accounts finally posting some stuff again. And these posts are starting to give us a lot of insight into new lore aspects of the game, which we're going to dive into today, and kind of compare and contrast with the theories that we had prior to the interview and the new post. So, as always, guys, be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Elden Ring news. We just crossed 4,000 subscribers, and I can't say thank you enough for that. It really means so much. But I do know that only 5% of you guys that watch my videos are subscribed, so if you don't mind, go ahead and hit that button if you keep seeing my videos on your homepage. But without any further ado, let's get into it. So a few days ago we did a live stream breaking down the trailer as much as we could, and it's gotten to the point where we kind of think we've analyzed every single pixel of it. And even by the end of it, we still have so many unanswered questions. Like, what is this giant face that's in the ground right here? We can also see it again later in the trailer as the face on this big siege equipment tool. Now, if you'll notice, it has what seem to be tendrils on the bottom of it. This could just be a weird way of them making hair, but we see throughout the trailer many other statues with hair on them that are very much more detailed. And if you look back at the stone one, it's not exactly one-to-one. Looking closely, we can see a third eye on the forehead, and the nose is also different, kind of turned up in a weird way. And the most striking thing to me is that this face seems to resemble a jellyfish more than a human head, in the way that the skin is kind of layered into these frills, leading to the tendrils beneath. Now, we also dug deep into some Norse mythology and Celtic mythology to try to identify what this thing could be, and we're unable to find anything. So the theory we came up with was that this is some kind of old god, or something that was once worshipped, that has long been abandoned. Since we can clearly see that they do revere this thing by putting it on the front of their siege equipment, but that's about as far as we've gotten with it. It could also be a straight reference to Ganeshka in Berserk, but I think that's kind of a stretch, so we're gonna move on from that. But what do you guys think this thing is? Now we're gonna take a look at the new Elden Ring tweets that are giving us some new lore details. The first one says, "The lands between bask in the pure light of the greater will before the shattering. Slivers of its blessing yet remain in hidden pockets where lost graces wait to be found." And then it's got 4 screenshots from the trailer that we've seen before on their website. So the common consensus is that these graces are gonna be our new bonfire system. And we can see in that third picture down there, they seem to be at the bottom of these streams of light from the Erd tree. Now, what's interesting is that it says basking in the pure light of the greater will. So what that communicates to me is that the Erd tree is synonymous with the greater will. So why does that matter? Well, if the Erd tree is what's shining the light down onto the graces, then that tells us that the will of the Erd tree is for us to follow them and find the Elden Ring. Now, obviously, we're gonna have to get the shards from the demigods to reform it, and that's probably gonna be our default ending, which would lead us to speculate on what the other types of endings could be, since we've been told that there's going to be lots of options for choice throughout the game that's going to affect the ending in the world. But for now, I'll leave that speculation up to you guys in the comments. The next tweet doesn't really have a lot of content, but it says, like the Erd tree itself, a tarnished path reaches up into the branches of the heavens and twists down into the roots of the earth, which again implies that we're going to be following the Erd tree and its will. And he gives us a screenshot that we've seen before, and then a new one of this Amethyst Cave that I'm sure you guys have seen by now. But there's not a lot to unpack in this one, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. Now, there's a little more to look at in this one. This tweet reads, "Foul deeds brought the shattering to these lands. Fouler deeds still may yet be afoot," with 4 screenshots to accompany it. Now, it's very interesting that they chose these 4 screenshots. Now, I found this first one very interesting. From what we can tell, these seem to be in-engine screenshots, so I think that dampens my theory that this guy is the multi-armed boss that we see at the end of the trailer, just much earlier on. So I don't think that's true anymore. But we do have a reference to Celtic mythology in this, potentially. In Celtic mythology, there's a legend of things called Kelpies, water horses or spirits that would live in the swamps of the lochs. That would take the form of a beautiful horse, but once it got near the water, it would return to its horrendous form and take whoever was riding it into the depths along with it. So I think the thing that we're looking at here is an NPC. He does look very similar to the other demigods that we see throughout the trailer, but I'm not sure if I think he's one of them. I think it's a clear nod to the Kelpie mythology, but I don't want to dive too deep into that in this video. I'll save it for another time. As for these 2 screenshots, I don't think there's too much to dive into, but it's the other one on the list that really piques my interest. Now, we've seen this picture before and we've analyzed it before, but I'll quickly run through my thoughts on it. I think the woman in the chair is Queen Marika the Eternal, as we've heard from the lore on the official website, and her offspring are the demigods that broke the ring and have the shards, dungeons. And we can see her guard shows up later in the trailer as an invader that fights the player character. And my favorite part about this picture is the king in the background. We've seen him before a long time ago in the leaked concept art, and this may be a spoiler, but spoiler alert, he's a giant snake monster. We know this because the faces are identical and we can see snake tails on the painting, which oddly enough are edited out in the trailer. So this picture being in the tweet really communicates to me that there's a lot of secrets here and a lot of nefarious actions going on, and I'm really excited to figure all this out. And now for the final and most interesting tweet of them all. This one reads, "A lord clings to his ruined legacy, the ruler of a husk wrung dry by war." And we can clearly see who the focal point of this tweet is. So there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, the tweet says clings to his legacy with a capital L, and we know that the main 6 areas of the game, each featuring a demigod, are called legacy dungeons. So that basically confirms that this guy is a demigod, and this castle that we see is going to be one of the legacy dungeons. More specifically, his domain. We also get further confirmation of this with the lion motif on his axe and the banners around the castle. So we know that this guy is currently an Elden Lord, an offspring of Queen Marika and a demigod, currently holding one of the great runes. Now that's all fairly obvious stuff, but there's a little bit more to bite into in the text of the tweet itself. Clings to a fallen legacy. Now if he is a lord and one of the most powerful people in the land, why is his legacy fallen? If he is the strongest person in the territory and has all this rule, why would he need to cling to it? And why would he not have the power to preserve it? Now if we infer that all the pictures in that tweet take place in that guy's domain, then we can reasonably assume that the knights that we see in there are under his control. But if we look closely in the trailer, we can see that they're all undead. So then what does that all mean? Personally, I'm not too sure, but I have a few ideas. We know that they're demigods because they were the queen's offspring, so that suggests that they were already royalty before the shattering. So it's likely they enjoyed a time of power. Now we don't know why they shattered the Elden Ring, perhaps it was done out of ambition, but deductive reasoning suggests that the undead and the distortion of matter around the tree was a result of the shattering. So then as a result of his actions, he brought the destruction of his own kingdom, which would be why he's still clinging to it. But that's just my thoughts on it. I don't know for sure, I'm still trying to figure all this out, but what do you guys think? Are there some things we missed? And what are your theories about all the things we've talked about so far? I really love doing all this speculation and deep diving into the lore and breaking down the trailer and all of this, and ultimately I'm not going to claim to be 100% certain about anything. Again, I'm not an insider, I just like doing this for good fun. The lore of the From Software and the Souls games are just so rich that there's always something new to find, and it gets addicting for people like me. So I really hope you guys have been enjoying the breakdown so far. We've still got a lot to go through, and it seems like every day now some new little piece of information about Elden Ring keeps coming out. And as always, I'm going to be doing my best to stay on top of that for you guys so I can bring you all the latest Elden Ring information. But I really hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll catch you in the next one.